Hey folks, Post here, welcome back to another Poem Master video, and now that we've had the stamina system for, I think, almost around 2 weeks or so, I don't remember exact date, I thought, I'd finally go through, I had, enough time to experience the system, all that stuff, and we've got some thoughts on the system overall, right, some pros and cons and all that stuff. Although the egg event hasn't started yet, which obviously could, still further change their perception, all that stuff. Legendary event, there's still more to come. But we'll see when those systems or events do eventually come. So, anyways, as for the stamina system, so far there's a lot of upsides and obvious downsides. Like, it's not a black and white issue. It's not good or bad, right? There are upsides and downsides, and if you're just here to say, oh, there's nothing good about stamina system, or there's nothing bad about stamina system, then you're not being honest, right? Obviously, you cannot say there's no pros or no cons at all for the whole system as general either way, right? It's nuanced. You could say overall, would you rather prefer it to have the stamina system or not, right? You could definitely say that, but you can't say there's like no upsides or downsides at all, right? But anyways, that being said, let's get into this. So let's first look at the upsides, and there are definitely a few, right? First of all, the biggest one, in my opinion, is the Syncorp area, right? They've just given us so much more Syncorps, right, in comparison to what we've gotten before. Before this update, I was like, I had to like save my Syncorps for specific units. I couldn't use you just use Syncorps willy-nilly on like every unit that I want. And I had a lot of units that were ungridded, completely ungridded, right? I had some units that were partially gridded. And now I basically have like zero problems with the Syncorps at all. Obviously, I did also buy the pass. But even without the pass, you shouldn't have too much problems, right? Especially if, especially if you're free to play, right? Then you generally won't have as many units that you need to grid anyways, so it's a pretty fair system in my opinion. But yeah, Syncorp area is definitely good. We're getting so much more Syncorps. The increase is obviously very noticeable, right? As for the second thing is the evolution materials. Basically evolution materials are not a problem at all anymore. It used to be that it was a rarity. You had like once a month exchange, right? You get like a few per month. I think it was 3 or whatever. And now they're just not even rare at all anymore. You just get them easily, right, every day. And that's good because we've had a huge increase in units that need evolution materials recently with the egg update, right? Because a lot of them, they do start out, I mean, they're eggs, they have to start out at their base form, right? And then you have to evolve them, and which obviously costs evolution materials. So this definitely helps that side as well. The third thing about the pros of the stamina system that I want to talk about is basically, this isn't like completely like a upside, because there are two sides to this, right? It's basically the grinding aspect of the game. You basically don't have to grind anymore at all. Like, back in the day when Syncorps were still like, theoretically unlimited, which obviously practically it's not unlimited, right? But, back in the day when you could still grind for Syncorps, I'd spend like 12, 13 hours every day grinding Syncorps, maybe even longer. And look, I personally like grinding for stuff. I don't mind it. I mean, obviously, I might have a different perspective on that than other people because, well, this is kind of my job, right? But I do understand that there are folks who don't really like the grinding aspect. Obviously, it is boring. I mean, I like grinding, but like 12, 13 hours, yeah, this is a bit excessive, right? So there's basically no grinding at all in this game anymore. And that I do also want to mention in like the downsides in a bit. So I'll expand on that when we get to talking about some of the cons, right? But yeah, basically no grinding at all. Like there's zero effort. There's basically zero effort anymore. Moving on to the other upside is skip tickets. Skip tickets, same thing as grinding, right? It's a double-edged sword. The upsides are pretty obvious. You just skip all these mundane, boring battles that you basically really just don't have to do anymore, right? Just use skip ticket and voila, you're done, right? Especially for these events like the summer event, right? The summer event dropped and I immediately finished it. It didn't even have to wait, didn't have to worry. Oh, that's another thing about the stamina. Like, so far, stamina has not been an issue. It hasn't been limiting, you know, in terms of completing events or you know, leveling up sync pairs, getting sync orbs. That hasn't been an issue yet. But obviously we are still also getting login bonus stamina, which definitely helps a lot in that case, right? But anyways, that's basically all the upsides. It's not a lot, but there, you know, again, there are some really good ones. Like I mentioned before, the sync orbs really nice. The other things, I mean, evo mats are nice too. The other things could be a bit, you know, contested, right? Whether it's actually a good thing or a bad thing. And let's get into that, right? So the cons. First thing, it's not really like a stamina issue per se that made this issue as big as it is. It's more so the game in general, right? Except stamina just exemplifies this issue, which is there's nothing to do. There's nothing to do. There's absolutely nothing to do. You just log in, do your dailies, do the daily Battle Villa thing, right? Co-op and single player, get your sync orbs, and there's nothing to do. There is nothing to do. And again, this isn't, you know, because there's stamina, there's now nothing to do, right? It's just that now that there's stamina and there's skip tickets, you can just skip everything, and then basically what you're doing is you're waiting every 10 hours or so, or I mean, if you're doing it every time you get a refill, basically you're waiting 2 hours to get, you're waiting 2 hours to click a course, use a skip ticket, and you get materials. So it's basically 2 hours, every 2 hours you get some materials. That's basically it. You're just waiting 2 hours for materials, and it's kind of boring. It is. It's really boring. There really isn't, you know, it's nothing to do here. Yeah, like it's just press this, press that, and that's 2 hours worth of stamina gone. And then, like, yeah, even like at first I was, you know, a lot of people were worrying about, oh, you know, with stamina system, you'll never have enough stamina to do all the stuff. It's kind of the opposite. You have so much stamina around, there's really nothing to, like, there's nothing to do. There's just nothing to do. As if I haven't already said that enough. So that's the first issue. Again, it's not like a stamina system per se. We just need more stuff to do in the game in general. But like, if you completely take away the grinding, like that's the part where what I like about, you know, games, and that's a big part of, you know, an RPG. That's a huge factor in RPG games, right? Is that you grind, you farm stuff, and that in turn makes your team, your whatever, right, stronger. And that was what was, you know, why some people prefer the older system in comparison to this one, right? In this one, you don't do anything at all. There's no sense of accomplishment. Like, sure, you level up your sync pairs, they get stronger. It's really easy to do that. You just, it's no accomplishment, right? So there's that. Anyways, moving on. The other thing is the stamina regen's way too slow. Stamina regen's way too slow. The stages cost too much. One, you know, yeah, everyone should be doing, generally, as long as you've been playing for a while, right? You should be doing the harder stages, and they all cost 20 stamina each. And 20 stamina is basically 2 hours. So you wait 2 hours to do one stage that, even if you don't use if you use skip tickets, like, it's 1 second and you're done, right? If you don't use skip tickets, you go into it, and then it's just, you know, 2 minutes of gameplay, and then you have to wait another 2 hours, right? Not even 2 minutes. So yeah, it's, the regen is too slow, and the stages cost too much. And like, here's the thing, they promised us that we would get drastic increases in the rewards. I don't know. Like, the rewards aren't even that good. Like, this isn't even that good. This is like, what, one of these is basically 3 of the gold ones. So basically, what we're getting over here, 8 plus, how many is that? 8 plus 9, right? So it's basically 17 gold books. You have to wait 2 hours to get 17 gold books. which you could have gotten in the older system in 10 minutes. Like, they promise that we'll get drastically increased, you know, rewards, items, but it's like, even you know, even if we're comparing it with folks who generally don't play the game that much, 10 minutes of your time per day, right? And then, like, it's really not that much in comparison to, again, we were waiting 2 hours. I get you're only doing it once in comparison to doing it, you know, multiple times, right? However many that would translate to, I think probably on average 6 to 8 games, right, beforehand. Okay, it's you do it once in comparison to 6 or 8 times, but like we're just getting kneecapped on these rewards. They're not that good. They really aren't that good. So that's an issue. The other one is eggs. Eggs would have been fine if they were guaranteed drops, but they're not. They're a percentage chance, right? This is the highest right now, 15% chance to drop them. Obviously, beforehand the system wasn't that great either. It's just a chance to drop them on super courses, and then right, and all that stuff. But more specifically, talk about the egg events, which are going to use stamina, right, when they drop. And again, it hasn't started yet, but theoretically we could think about it in that way, right? So it's going to be a, what, 60-something% chance, that's the highest you get, to drop a 3-star egg. And especially bad for free-to-play players who are looking to get egg exchange ticket, because egg exchange tickets are most efficient on 3-star eggs, right? Because you know, they're a third of the time, and they give the same amount of tickets, right? If you already got all the units that you needed and you don't care about the others, you could just go for exchange tickets, egg exchange tickets, which obviously, again, like I mentioned before, are very much harder to get for free-to-play players who don't have that extra incubator, right? Or that extra accelerator pass. So that's also an issue. One more thing that I want to talk about, it's not a big deal, but it's kind of lame that they took away the training area, which also took away the level up ultra hard course, right? Which is the Glalie one. Like, Glalie's whole sync pair story, if you guys haven't read it before, Glalie's whole sync pair story was explaining why she was training at the volcano, and then obviously her ultra hard level up course is fighting in a volcano. And then they took it away. It was like, now the sync pair story, you know, it's not as good anymore, right? Unfortunately. And the other thing is, there's a lot of more variety back then with the training courses that folks could test their teams against. And you can't really do that anymore because, first of all, if you want to test your teams, that's like 20 stamina, right? You have to hand over. And the other thing is that in terms of the type effectiveness, they drastically decrease them, so there's really not that many that you get tested against. Not that it's again not a huge deal, but there's also that. But it also goes to the although one upside is that now we get to fight Sabrina. That's another upside, I guess. But to the larger point of that, which is it's just harder to test units on certain stages anymore. Again, you could still do it on the full force battle, which is generally what you want to do anyways, because, you know, nothing else is like really that difficult. But if you just want to run numbers or whatever, right, it's just much harder to do that on super effective stages. If you want to check them out on super effective stages, again, it's much harder. And also for free-to-play players, or not free-to-play players, but for newer players that come into the game, right, since you can't grind as much, it's going to be very, very hard for new players to start attempting these events. For example, you know, usually every time a legendary event comes around, brings a lot of new players to the game. And, like, if you're new and you don't have the utilities or the resources to grind up your team to beat the legendary event, you're basically screwed. You're gonna miss that. You're basically gonna miss that event, right? If, again, it is as hard as the previous events have been. Which, again, isn't hard for folks who have played this game, got all their free-to-play units gridded, all that stuff. But, you know, if you're new to the game, you're not beating that, you know, Ho-Oh stage, right? But, yeah, just a few thoughts that I have on the stamina system in general. Again, it's nuanced. There's upsides, downsides, which I've both explained. You could weigh certain things more, you know, more than others, right? I certainly do. I, for one, like, the big thing is there's nothing to do. We're just waiting every few hours to get a few items. We don't even do anything. So yeah, it is what it is, I guess. There's just it's here. The system is here. Again, you could always send feedback to tell them what you think about it. I think somewhere over here, right? Other is customer support, something like that, and then you could send in feedback. There we go. Right, in terms of in terms of what you think about the system. So anyways, that's me with this one. I hope you guys enjoy. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do keep in mind to be respectful, please. Both in the comments and also in your feedbacks. I mean, if you're rude in the feedbacks, you're literally hurting whatever cause you're trying to push for, right? So again, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll be streaming more Ultra Lose Moon later tonight, and I'll see you guys in the next one.